Welcome to Conversations with Big Rich. This is an interview-style podcast. These interviewed are all involved in the off-road industry. Being involved, like all of my guests are, is a lifestyle, not just a job. I talk to past, present, and future legends, as well as business owners, employees, media, and land use warriors. Men and women who have found their way into this exciting and addictive lifestyle we call off-road. We discuss their personal history, struggles, successes, and reboots. We dive into what drives them to stay active in off-road. We all hope to shed some light on how to find a path into this world that we live and love and call off-road.
Whether you're crawling the Red Rocks of Moab or hauling your toys to the trail, Maxxis has the tires you can trust for performance and durability. 4 wheels or 2. Maxxis tires are the choice of champions because they know that whether for work or play, for fun or competition, Maxxis tires deliver. Choose Maxxis. Tread victoriously.
Have you seen 4Low magazine yet? 4Low magazine is a high-quality, well-written, four-wheel drive-focused magazine for the enthusiast market. If you still love the idea of a printed magazine, something to save and read at any time, 4Low is the magazine for you. 4Low cannot be found in stores, but you can have it delivered to your home or place of business. Visit 4lowmagazine.com to order your subscription today. On this episode of Conversations with Big Rich is Chris Walker. Chris went from being a canoeing and kayaking instructor in the UK to working with the Land Rover Experience, then to creating a company called Overland Training Canada, which is a Canadian-based company that provides mobility training for the commercial, industrial, and recreational sector. Hello, Chris Walker. Good to have you on this. We've talked about it a couple times, and here you are.
Good afternoon, Rich. Great to talk to you, and finally we made it happen. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's let everybody know Chris Walker works on the Rebelle as part of the staff with Shelley and I and 124 others. But Chris is a good guy. He's got quite the background and history. So we're gonna dive right into that right now. And so Chris,
sounds good.
Tell me where you were born and raised.
Well, despite my accent, it's a little mongrel. I was born and raised in the UK. I grew up most of my childhood being schooled and educated and growing up there. And I moved to British Columbia, Canada in 2006 along a varied journey of travel and exploration and work across the world.
Okay. So what part of the UK? I'm assuming England.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I spent a lot of my time schooling. My mum's side of my family is from Wales, and then my dad's side has a long history in the UK, England and Scotland. My parents live in South Wales. The vast majority of the rest of my relatives live up in Scotland, up towards Edinburgh there. I was schooled really central England, the edge of the Cotswolds, and then up towards North Wales in a small old Roman city called Chester. And then I moved on to North Wales, where I really kind of started my career and my love and affinity for the outdoors there.
And going to school, what kind, I know like Canada has, the school system is fairly close to what the United States is. And I would imagine the UK is not too much different, but, what kind of studies did you have besides, reading, English reading and,
the usual
mathematics,
stuff.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I mean, normal education, although I guess it kind of tailored into something a little bit more specific. I was very lucky. I ended up in the middle of my schooling, and just through the nature of my parents having to move around for work, I ended up in a boarding school, which, I mean, maybe some of the listeners might tilt their heads or balk at that, but honestly, it was one of the best experiences of my life. And what that did for me is that it gave me lots of opportunities to enjoy extracurricular activities, so things like Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, the cadets, the command cadets there. And very quickly I found that my passion really was the outdoors, mountaineering, kayaking, climbing, ice climbing, caving, and what have you. And the way the UK education system works is, or at the time, was as you get older towards high school, you can start to specify a little more on some of the subjects that you might be interested in that would help you to gain entry into the university or universities of your choice. So I quickly realized through being a competitive swimmer, a competitive rower, a competitive kayaker, that I wanted to work in the outdoor education industry as a high-level coach or instructor. So I took subjects that guided me towards a university degree in sports science and performance coaching. Once I completed that degree, that led me to North Wales, where I spent lots of my time competing, exploring, kayaking, climbing, all that kind of stuff. And really, that was the love of my outdoors. That then moved to exploring the world in a kayak, whitewater kayak, looking at extensive rivers. And part of the vehicle association here, because that's what we're really here to talk about, is through some of those explorations, we'd use vehicles or interesting vehicles to get to interesting places to go kayak those rivers. I mean, I lived in Iceland for 2 years. I lived in Norway for 2 years. Iceland's a good example in terms of my first real kind of interaction with interesting vehicles was with people like Arctic Trucks, Emil Brimson and Torfi, and those people using vehicles to cross the glaciers and the ice caps and the mountains to get to interesting rivers. I mean, if I went back a stage into education, I grew up in a family that was very much focused on doing well at school, doing well at extracurricular activities, but also earning a living, having a great upbringing. And one of the things that I did as a youngster was we lived near a famous town called Stratford-upon-Avon of kind of the Shakespeare history. And we lived right next door to an arable and a dairy farm owned by a school friend of mine. And I would hop the fence after school, walk across the field, and end up working on the farm as a 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old, helping milk cows, driving tractors. And the very first vehicle that I remember driving was a little Series 1 Land Rover that wasn't licensed or registered. It was in too poor of a shape to be on the road anymore. But I remember Mr. Hall or Farmer Hall would take me out in this little Land Rover. I could barely see over the steering wheel. It was old straight cut gears and an interesting little car to learn on. But that's really where my love of travel and vehicles came from. Okay. I then carried on traveling with that kind of exploration of kayaking, but I decided I wanted to move to Canada for a variety of reasons, basically bigger mountains, bigger rivers, bigger terrain. I moved in 2006, still working in outdoor education as a performance coach. I then started to work in Whistler, where I'd moved to, working with snowcats, snowmobiles, ATVs, all that kind of stuff. So my motorized interest started to get peaked more, especially as my body was getting a little sorer for those kind of high-level sports. I wasn't able to perform as well as I used to. I was getting a little older, a little more worn, a few more injuries. So I started to look at other avenues. I owned a couple of snowmobiles. I ended up working and still do with the mountain there, driving snowcats, teaching people to drive snowcats. But my first real association of true off-roading was with a Land Rover trip. Land Rover did a large press event, dealer training launch for the then Range Rover Evoque based out of Vancouver and Whistler. They came for a couple of weeks, I think it was, and they did trips up and down the corridor, culminating in a trip all the way up Blackcomb Mountain to the snow and the ice in these cars with lots of interesting people. And I was the liaison for Whistler Blackcomb and Jaguar Land Rover North America, who was conducting that program.
Let's look at some of the early stuff. First of all, you said you were you swam competitively as a youngster.
Yeah.
What distances or stroke did you swim?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. It's a long time ago now. 50 meters, 100 meters, freestyle and fly, and then 50 and 100 relay.
Oh,
And
you
I
were
was
one of those
typically
prima donna
freestyle relay.
sprinters. You were a prima donna sprinter, huh?
Yeah, I definitely was. I was a little youngster back then, although one of my secret passions during training was definitely distance swimming.
Okay.
I think we did a day, this is a very random story where I swam for something like 18 hours straight as a challenge in the local open air school pool. But yeah, definitely a short course swimmer at the time.
Okay. I was a long distance swimmer, so I had to ask.
Oh, cool. Oh, right on. That's awesome.
And
yeah,
then I wanted to get into you got into kayaking, and then you I know that you did guided kayak trips and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, that was really my ultimate love of sport there. That's where I performed the highest, but that's where I traveled the most. So the UK has a great history of adventure education through the school system. So I quickly became engrossed in canoeing, kayaking. My parents sent me away to like an adventure camp known by a company called PGL, affectionately known by the kids as Parents Get Lost. It was like a week camp, kids, right? Kids only. I think that trip we kayaked the length of the River Wye, which was really pretty. And then I quickly found out that I was really interested in whitewater kayaking, grew through the ranks in terms of ability, and became an instructor, and then a really high-level instructor. And I worked at 3 national centers of excellence: the National Whitewater Sports Center, the National Water Sports Center, and then the National Mountaineering Center, teaching people to kayak recreationally and kayak or learn how to be instructors. And that led me all over the world, like I said, to lots of first ascents. I was a pro kayaker for a long time, sponsored by a couple of kayak companies, and at the time of my life, traveling the world, living on next to nothing, but seeing amazing places and amazing rivers.
See, that's the kind of stuff those are good stories. I know we'll get into the automotive stuff, but those are the kind of things that build that background.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I probably hurt myself a lot, nearly died a couple of times, and then I was finding out when I moved to BC that I was trying to push myself and my body wasn't necessarily cutting the check for me to make those moves on the river to survive. So had a couple of big crashes and burns. Almost had a really big one in Norway when I lived there. That was probably my scariest swim. I pulled out unconscious and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, but as they say, you dust yourself off and get back to it when you love that kind of activity so much.
Right. And then, so you were from the kayaking and canoeing. Then that's when then you moved to BC. There was that was the main reason.
Yeah, it was really. I mean, my parents lived in Toronto. For a funny story, my parents lived in Toronto for a while. I was conceived in Toronto, born in the UK. So I had this. It sounds funny, but I had this little secret affiliation with Canada that I wanted to explore it more. So I came over in 2003, did a whole lot of exploring, and fell in love with the place. And being a Commonwealth country, the process with the certification and education that I had, it was fairly straightforward to emigrate here. And now I'm a dual citizen, but it allowed me to expand my horizons on bigger terrain, day in, day out, bigger rivers, bigger mountains, skiing, all the things really. So more of a lifestyle choice more than anything.
Okay. And schooling, did you higher education? Did you get beyond, what do you guys call it, primary?
Yeah. No, so it's primary, secondary. I ended up with a degree in sports science and performance coaching.
Okay.
At the University of Liverpool and Chester. So I went right through to my degree.
Okay, great. And so then you find yourself in BC, or Whistler. Whistler is it in BC or is it in Alberta?
Yeah, Western British Columbia. No, okay. Western British Columbia. So
okay. Just
north of Vancouver and about 3 hours west of Kelowna, where we just did Canada trials there.
Right. when we were talking about the highways. The U.S., we have our
That's
highways
right.
go up the mountains, and we'll work our way around up the mountains. We just don't go straight. But Canada doesn't want to lay any concrete or asphalt, so you guys just like start at the bottom of the hill. Oh, there's the top, and you just go straight up.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, the U.S. is a massive country, but Canada is a huge country, so
Absolutely.
we don't have quite the resources that you guys do. So the more smart we are with our resources, I think the better. But that's a byproduct of that.
Just straight up the mountain, no switchbacks, or very few.
Right
just
on.
Straight up the mountain.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh man, it was fine. It would have been better if I wasn't towing a trailer, but that's.
Yeah, exactly. And the family and all the stuff. Yeah, I hear you. That's a big old haul up over those two pieces of road that you drove on.
Yes, yeah, it was. So, and I wanted to go through Banff and Whistler on the way home, and then come down and catch the 15. Well, we call the 15. I don't know what highway it is, but catch it there in somewhere. What is it? Where I don't know where the your transcontinental interstate catches that highway that comes up, but I mean somewhere between Lethbridge and Calgary, I guess. And
over by Glacier National Park.
yeah, I wanted to come. That was going to be my first plan, and then after spending a day driving to Kelowna like we did, there was no way I was turning around and going back north to catch the transcontinental again. So it was like, all right, we'll just head south.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So you're up at Whistler. You get into doing things with the vehicles, and how did it expand from there?
Mm-hmm. So I ended up being part of what's known as the Land Rover Experience mobile team for North America, and that's an amazing group of off-road driving instructors that predominantly work for Land Rover. I mean, these are all like icons, Camel Trophy ladies and gentlemen who are really synonymous with vehicle exploration and vehicle competition from way back in the day. I mean,
guys that like to use their winches.
Yes, yeah, that's it. We're in the middle of the jungle on roads that are barely passable. Big convoys of older Land Rovers and all the equipment and the mechanics and the press guys. I mean, Bob Burns, Fred Monzi, Jim Sweat, Jim West, Tom Collins, the names go on and on and on. So I spent lots of time with them, and they were really amazing role models. I mean, in reality, I'm not doing what I'm doing without their grit and determination to kind of kick me into shape to be a good off-road driving instructor. So I spent lots of time with them on Land Rover drive programs across North America and in Canada.
Okay.
I then, because I can't sit still and I like to also do things for myself, is I saw a niche in terms of commercial training presenting itself to me predominantly in Canada, where lots of workplaces were looking at using or use four-wheel drive vehicles of some description to work on the forest service roads, the resource roads, the mine roads, whatever it might be. So I saw this niche and I created a company to service that niche. And really it tied into my background of education in the UK. As part of this degree, we look at a lot of occupational health and safety training. And that's really kind of where the UK almost leads the world for the good or better of the workplace with the workplace safety test. So I saw that niche and I started my own company. And now we're the largest company in Canada, probably one of the larger ones in the continent, delivering training predominantly for industry. I mean, we're 19 instructors these days. And we teach commercial, industrial 4x4 driving from light to heavy duty vehicles, snowmobiles, snowcats, ATVs, UTVs, anything that's off-highway industry based. But we still work with a small amount of recreational folk who want to learn how to use their awesome Jeeps or Toyotas or whatever it might be to go and explore the place.
And,
so yeah, that's kind of.
And the name of that company is?
Overland Training Canada.
Okay, Overland Training Canada.
Yeah, and that's really that's really how I got involved with Emily and the Rebelle through a variety of different kind of programs. I met Emily at the BC Overland Rally, oh gosh, 8-9 years ago, thereabouts, and just I kind of keep my eye to the ground, listening and watching what people are doing, and I saw these amazing sort of women doing this education at the BC Overland Rally, or the Northwest Overland Rally maybe, in Washington there, and I expressed an interest to Emily, and she tilted her head and was like, "No way, Jose, not until I've sussed you out and figured out who you are and where you're coming from." And slowly over, you know how it goes, right? Over a couple of years of me earning her trust, she slowly decided to bring me into the fold, and as you know, the rest is history.
Actually, it was easy for me, but it was probably it was Shelley. The whole how we got involved with the Rebelle is Shelley saw that this event was coming up, and she wanted to compete in it. So she was doing all this research in it, and then when it finally opened up, she looked at what was needed to compete, and she says, "Well, I drive a lot off road, but I'm not the driver." Right? We're off road a lot, but she doesn't drive. I do all the driving. So then she thought, okay, well, what about navigating? And then she looked at it and was like, and really looking at her skill set, she would have had to really put some training into it, and it was not be able to get onto the event the first year because she didn't have those skills yet. And so she goes, "Well, Rich, you know Emily, right?" Well, I knew Emily originally because she raced for Rod Hall, or with Rod Hall.
Yeah.
And Rod raced in the Vora series, which I owned back in the early 2000s. And then, so then we started working together as well. I was running one of the trails for Dave Cole at King of the Hammers at that point, and she was doing the media, so she would bring people up to Chocolate Thunder because that was a really good area, to watch the race. And so she'd be introducing me to all these, important people to Dave, whether they were off-road racers or, marketing partners or politicians. And so then I could explain to him what was going on, at that part of the race course, but also explain what was going on racing-wise. And she was doing this one day, and she'd been bringing people up all day long, and she brought up Ricky Johnson. And Ricky and I go back quite a few years, and Ricky goes, "Oh, Big Rich, how's it going?" And gives me this big hug. And all of a sudden, she put Rich Klein and Big Rich together, and she goes, "Oh my God, you used to own Vora, and I raced the series with Rod Hall." And I was like, yeah, you did, and she was like, "Oh my God," so a couple of years of that. And then when I called her to say, "Hey, Shelley and I'd like to volunteer." And she was like, "Really? Okay." But it was the first year.
Yeah.
So it was, she was looking for people with experience. So, and at that point I'd probably put on 350 plus events. So it was, she trusted me at that point, so we got on. That's easy. Good. We didn't have to go through a vetting process, so we got lucky.
Well, I'm glad I went. Yeah, I'm glad I went through the vetting process. I think for me it was worthwhile, and it was because I don't come from that kind of race background, or that automotive background. It was good to learn some humility in the direction that the Rebelle takes and how she wants people to act and behave. So I'm thankful there was put through the test there because it was more rewarding, and I know I can do a better job because of it. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do a good job though. So
you guys are like the kings of sweet there. I love listening and watching and learning from you guys. So it definitely puts a smile on my face every day. I mean, there's so many fun stories from behind the scenes on that whole program, as you know better than anyone else.
Right. There's some good stories out there, that's for sure. So let's.
Did you hear about
What's that?
Just on that note, just real quick, On that note, just real quick, do you hear about the story about how I got on course for the first time?
No, I do not know that. Let's hear it.
So, yeah, it's the classic Emily. So she told me where to be when, what flights to bring. I jump on a flight down to LA. I get picked up by a nice lady who I can't remember. Jump in the car. I've got no idea where I'm going. I've got my travel bag, my little laptop bag, and I'm just kind of wearing some outdoor clothes. She takes me out, across the mountains, across the desert, wherever it was, and we pull off the highway, this little parking lot, which I now know where it was. 5 minutes later, Emily comes bounding over in Princess, her car of that competition that year. Jump in it, throw my stuff in the back, off we go, out into this OHV area. I have no idea where I'm at because I've got no cell service. We're driving along, just chit-chatting. She's obviously busy. The course radio's going, or the competition radio's going, I should say. We say, oh, I've got to run an errand. Jump out right here, grab your stuff. Someone will come and get you. I'm like, okay. So I grab my bags. I stand out there, literally in the middle of this OHV. There's no one else in sight. I have no cell service. I have no idea where I'm at. And I'm standing there for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, kind of twiddling my thumbs like, okay, what do I do? Literally in my airport bag and my laptop bag, twiddling my thumbs. I think it was Chris Wu who comes down the course, and I'd never met him. I've heard of him. Comes down in his big truck and is like, hey, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm here with the Rebelle. I don't know what I'm doing. Emily just dropped me off. And he's like, you should probably get into the truck and we'll take you to base camp or we'll look after you. So she dropped me off in Dove Springs, right in the middle there, out the back. And I had no idea what I was doing. And that was my introduction to the Rebelle on my first year, whenever that was, 6 or 7 years ago.
Dove Springs is, you're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's great. I love it there. I now know it really well, but as someone who's never really spent much time in the desert at that point, literally my airport bag and my laptop bag and not a lot else, just twiddling my thumbs in the middle.
And no service.
No service. I'm clearly out of place. So that was quickly fixed.
And knowing how Emily is with sunglasses and other items, her phone, that kind of thing, she could have forgotten all about you at that point.
I think she probably had.
Right.
She probably told someone, hey, I just dropped this guy here. Can someone grab him? And Wu being Wu and due diligent was probably like, hey, I'm actually going that way. I'll go grab him.
Yep.
Before someone forgets about him.
That's awesome. So then, your training. What kind of training do you do with these, like the industrial? I understand the driving is what all is involved.
Well, so really, it's looking at taking someone who works in the workplace, be it on a regular gravel road to a more complex or more challenging road, using 4x4 through to pickups, lightweight pickups through to heavy duty pickups with trailers, tandem axle, quad axle, all sorts of interesting vehicles. And really, when a big organization, let's say an oil and gas company, has a huge fleet of vehicles, their primary cause or primary workplace-related incident, be it damage to equipment, vehicles, infrastructure, or people, is typically caused or related to driving. So a lot of big companies these days are looking at driver training to try and reduce some of those risks. Most of the courses are fairly straightforward. Like if we ran a course through with you and Jimmy and Lou and a couple of others, you guys would be tilting your heads like, okay, yeah, well, we know all this stuff. But it's really just trying to put the skills that they already have, tidy them up to workplace vehicles, and the regulations around things like OSHA and workplace PC and health and safety to tidy their skills up so there's less chance of having accidents or injuries or damage. I mean, if you look at, we just finished one project with 1,100 people on one single training project where they were looking at their biggest cause of concern, their biggest incident was when people were parking their vehicles with their pickup trucks and people would back into the very structures that they were trying to build, like multi-billion-dollar structures for this big project. They're trying to reduce those kind of things happening. So we go in, we evaluate what they're doing in the workplace, and we then tailor the training to really fit what they're doing to reduce those things. They could be just as simple as seatbelt regulations, how and when to put the vehicle into 4x4, how to control the vehicles from throttle to brake to steering, how to get out and spot, how to negotiate water bars, how to load and tie down your equipment, how to use radios, how not to get tired, how to be mindful in the cab when you've got a driver and maybe a set of passengers, all those things really, through to really challenging terrain where you're pushing the limit of an industrial or a work vehicle as opposed to a built Jeep or Toyota or something. That's vehicles that are bought straight out the factory, very little modification other than a good set of tires. So trying to understand how to drive those vehicles in more challenging terrain, and then get home at the end of the day and not be a draw on the rescue services or the health services or the fleet services, that kind of stuff. And imagine a company that's running, say, 1,000 trucks on one project. The less downtime they have, the less injury they have, the better it is for the whole organization, the whole project. So really that's where it's at. And that transfers across to ATV, UTV, snowmobile, and snowcat. All the same kind of deal, really.
Right, because the companies have those vehicles as well, especially working up in Canada or the Yukon.
Exactly. And every organization does things or has slightly different requirements for those types of vehicles. But yeah, it's a pretty wide range, especially if you look from, say, the forest industry in BC through to say the petroleum industry on the north slope of Alaska, through to an oil and gas pipeline coming down through central Canada to, I mean, it's far and wide. The mining industry, the resource sector, the farming industry is also. It's a pretty broad spectrum of everyday users using everyday vehicles for their workplace.
Cool. Have you personally competed in any kind of event, vehicle-wise?
I have not.
Okay.
I would like to one day, but I don't know what that looks like. The Alcan looks really interesting to me. It's just, I guess it's probably harder for someone like me in terms of trying to find the time, the money, the experience to find a niche to get into something that I could dive into. My problem is once I get, because I have a little bit of a competitive nature from my younger background, is if I get into something, I'm going to want to go for it, and then I'm going to spend all my money and absorb all my time, which is not a bad thing, but maybe it's not the focus I need right now. So, right. A, I want to, but B, I'm sort of semi-reluctant. But C, if an opportunity presents itself and it's right, then I'll jump on it 100%.
Right, I understand. I'm in the same situation. You know, being an event promoter,
yeah.
It's like, you know, people ask me, have you ever competed in rock crawling? And I tell them no. And, you know, have you desert raced? No. You know, have you rock raced? No. I've never competed in anything because I know that I'm too competitive, and I would get, you know, I get solely focused, and, you know, I have to do it at the highest level or try to obtain the highest level. Otherwise, I'm not satisfied with myself. So I know I'm better off as a promoter than a racer.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. I'm exactly the same. I guess my own personal little competition in my own head is, as you know, I drive Emily's personal truck during the Rebelle. So my own personal competition is to compete the Rebelle as a member of staff, getting the most footage for the videographer that I primarily look after, and get to the end of the competition without beating a car up or making a company yell at them, waving a fist at me because I punctured the tire or got too many pinstripes on it. So that's my own little internal competition.
There you go. Excellent. So then, what have your duties been on the Rebelle besides hanging out at Dove Springs waiting for somebody to pick you up?
Right. Well, Emily and I spend a lot of time, so I have a couple of aspects that I work with. So I guess number one, I'm one of the official instructors on Rebel U. So I've been lucky enough to spend time with Emily and Chrissy and Laura, Chris Benzie, and the other instructors teaching on the Rebel U courses in California and Nevada. And that's really where my heart and soul is in terms of kind of day in, day out stuff. Helping Emily manage the program that she runs at the BC Overland Rally and the Northwest Overland Rally. That's been really fun over the years. And then in terms of the Rebel Rally itself, primarily these days, my technical title is press driver with Heather Lewis. But for the listeners, I also blend a little bit as per Emily's guidance into the safety team, but only in terms of if something needs assistance out on course in terms of recovery or a response or some assistance, then I've been tasked to go be one of those people. And it seems like I tend to be one of the primary responders because the nature of what I'm trying to do in terms of moving the videographer or the photographer around course, I have some strict guidelines where I can and can't go in terms of the course, as you know, but the way Jimmy and Emily set up the integrity of the competition.
Right.
But during those moments where there's something that he's responding to, I have the trust of Emily to make good choices and to respond across country to whatever that might be if deemed necessary. And I probably, because I'm usually out on the course moving around more than not most, or more than a large proportion of the staff, so I'm probably more mobile to be able to do that. And I think that's really why that happens. But yeah, it's a predominantly press driver, secondarily part of the safety or response team, I guess.
Okay. And what do you think of the Rebel overall? I mean, what?
Oh my God!
When somebody asks you what do you like about the Rebel, what do you come up with?
That's a really hard question. I've never found a concise answer. So it's one of the most amazing competitions I've ever come across. In terms of clearly it's all focused on women competing, which is very unique in itself. I love the fact that it's nothing to do with speed. I like the fact, or I really enjoy the fact that it's to do with accurate, smart driving, because that really ties into what I do in terms of a career with my company. We're all about being smart drivers and accurate, not damaging vehicles or the environment, and being really mindful to tread lightly. I really enjoy the fact that it's map and compass navigation. So that really sings to me and my background in terms of mountaineering instruction, orienteering instruction, and how I grew up. And then, oh my gosh, the women competitors, they're all amazing people. The staff are beyond inspiring and incredible. So it's this melting pot of such a diverse background of people being out in the desert doing something they all love and challenging themselves, not only as a competitor, but a member of staff. And then, I mean, shoot, how often do you get to go to be part of something where you get to drive, I know, let's just say 2,000 miles per competition every year in some of the most unbelievably amazing terrain that really most people would never get the opportunity to see. And then, I mean, Jimmy and Emily are just geniuses on where they take us. So being allowed to be just a teeny tiny cog in that wheel it's a year's highlight. I mean, there's nowhere else I could get the experience to go drive that kind of distance in that kind of terrain and do it for a purpose.
Right. And what part of, okay, I don't know if you can say this and not hurt anybody else's feelings, but which group of the staff, because there's all a bunch of different staff groups, do you like hanging out with the best?
Oh gosh, it's a rough word. throw me under the bus, Chris.
No, you can take the fifth on it. You don't have to. You don't have to do it.
No, I got a good answer. I'm going to say Drew and the chef, because that's the food is amazing.
Okay.
And then I can't get in trouble for anyone else.
There you go. There you
Honestly,
go. That was good thinking there.
Right. I mean, honestly, I like hanging out with everyone, but the reality is, as you know, the days are long. Start in darkness, finish in darkness. So socially, really, I probably don't really get to socialize much at all, which is totally fine. Get there, set up camp, go to sleep, get up the next morning, do the job. That's just kind of how I roll.
Yeah, I think most of us, like on the course, how we socialize is on the radio.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I probably sit with Nick and the guys for maybe 20 minutes at the end of each day, half an hour at the end of each day, because it's interesting there. And part of my job as a media driver is to kind of keep my ear to the ground to listen to stories and development. So the radio is really cool during the daytime because it's really interesting seeing how things unfold. But often sitting at a mechanic's trailer as they're doing work or the women are coming in maintaining their cars, you often hear snippets of interesting information which may lead to a story or a piece of video that evening or the next day. So really, if I'm going to be caught somewhere sitting down, that's where it is. Although if Emily's listening, I only sit down in the media tent, nowhere else, because I know she'll come over to now she'll be scoping me out at the mechanic's trailer to send me on an errand to Vegas or fly to the UK to go pick something up.
Yeah, because during the event, everybody on staff is busy. I mean, we're all running around, not like chickens with our head cut off. We know what we're doing. We know what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
We just have a lot to do, and I can see.
And that's why I like it.
Yeah, I can see, because when the teams get back to the tent, once they've gotten to the finish line each day, they're they gotta set up their camp. If they need maintenance or anything done on the vehicle, they go over to the mechanic's tent. They go through the fuel line. That's pretty quick, most times. There's not a lot of time to socialize until they're filling your car. So I can see where listening and hearing makes sense at the mechanics, because once they get in the tent, then it's all about food and preparing for the next day, or asking the other teams how their days were. And so what Shelley and I try to do is sit at a different table every night, at least when the first few years of the rally. Now, by the time we get in, all the tables are full. So there's a back corner table, where you might find, the mechanics or the staff, other staff sitting, or the media part. There might be seats there. Yeah. So it gets more difficult as the years have gone on, and more teams. Right.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Pretty cool. It's highlights of the year for sure. And so many characters across both sides of things. I mean, from Busby to you guys to Woo to Jimmy to Nick to Drew. I mean, what an amazing bunch of people.
And the photographers all have incredible stories from their years, what they do all year long. The travel and the different events that they do.
Yeah, exactly. And then the stuff that they produce for Emily to use in whatever direction she sends it is just staggering.
Yeah, pretty phenomenal. So, Chris, have you watched the Dead Reckoning series? I'm sure you have.
I have. Yeah, absolutely. It's one heck of a series. It was enjoying watching each one of those episodes come out. I was poking Emily to tell me when the next episode would come out almost every other step of the way. And then I think along with that series, which I recommend anyone to take the time to watch, it really gives you an amazing insight into what the whole Rebel Rally is about in terms of terrain and ethos and competition. Every year, one of my favorite pieces is to go back online or whenever the email goes out and watch the course highlights, the little start video that they put on, and those kind of things. They all do such a good job. It just ties together those 2 weeks out in the desert really nicely in a way to go, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh gosh, I remember that. Because it moves so fast, like, once we leave day one, once the train starts rolling, it's on. You barely have a moment to think. So it's good to be able to have something really high quality to look back on. That's why I enjoy them.
I agree, because you get to see everything that's happening. Like, we're on course, we take off first thing in the morning, because we're setting courses, course markers, getting to our checkpoints, that kind of thing, and then running sweep. We're typically the last ones in. Either Shelley and I or Chris Wu, are typically the last ones in or combined, and it's I don't see what's happening except what we can see on scoring, or we can see with the live show, if we have service, which now we have service all the time, because thank you Elon Musk and Starlink, which has been a big game changer. So
huge.
Yeah.
So, the live shows are fun. I often when people ask me about the Rebel and it's coming up to October, then I'll encourage people to keep an eye on the website and watch the live presentations every day, because they're fun with Emmy and Katie and Matthew. They're quirky goofballs in their own rights with their own interesting backgrounds, and it's fun to see them interact with the staff and the competitors and the day in, day out competition. But it's not easy to watch during the competition, that's for sure.
Right, especially for staff. I mean, it's especially if we're moving, because we got to be conscious of where we're going and what we're doing, so
watching the track or listening to the radio.
Yes, exactly. And watching and keeping track of scoring, so we know where everybody is at, where they're supposed to be going, as opposed to maybe where some of them are going. There's nobody ever gets truly lost. We know where they're at, especially nowadays. Maybe that first year there was a little bit of that, but we recovered quickly and found people that maybe had gotten off track.
It's very interesting watching the trackers. And then trying to figure out what the next move is by certain teams, and you see the odd random turn by a vehicle, and it's fun watching them drive a distance and figure it out, and then get back on course and seeing them at the end of the day having done well and a big smile on their face. It's like it's hard to comprehend what they have to go through sometimes to get down course, but it's fun. I love watching it.
Yeah, we sit there and we're watching the tracking, we're watching the scoring, and then all of a sudden, we see everybody's going, say at a specific spot, everybody's turning west. And then you see one team turn east or south, and you're like, why did they do that? What are they thinking? But the difference is that we have all the electronics. We've got track logs. We know where we're supposed to be going. And they're just trying to figure it out with compass and plotting points, and hopefully they got the map orientated right, so that they know north is up on the map, and they don't have the map inverted. We've seen that a couple of times. Like, no, we're supposed to be over here.
No. I mean, I don't watch the scoring as much. I tend to watch the tracker, because when I leave in the morning, I have to get to X area as kind of where Jimmy and Heather and Emily have kind of guided us to, hey, these shots might be really cool here, or these shots might be really cool here, or these shots might be really cool there. So I'm playing this game of, if I get to that first location, we can get a ton of vehicles, but if I sit there until all the vehicles have gone through, there's a high likelihood that's it for my day. We're never going to be able to catch up. Right. Not because people are racing, but people are moving and being efficient, and they're getting down the course and doing the navigation. So I have to play this game of almost like cat and mouse. Okay, they're here right now. Let's take this number of vehicles, get these shots. Now, how do I transit myself to get back ahead of the game to staying within tread lightly and speed limits and tracking limits and all that kind of stuff, and course limits like Jimmy set? for safety and integrity, of how do I get back on course to then recapture either new competitors or same competitors in a completely different environment, and then respond to the interesting radio calls like, hey, team XXX, they had a double puncture back in behind Dove Springs there, and they're requesting assistance. So those kind of things are really the things that I listen for, because they're interesting stories for live video or video snippets for later on, or interviews or what have you, because that's just a real part of the competition. So I have to cat and mouse my way through this by watching the tracker and then trying to figure out on the map where they're heading next and how can I intercept people. And that's part of my own internal competition, which is again why I enjoy it so much, is because we have to challenge ourselves to get in the right place at the right time, really, to capture the content that the media team's after. So that's a lot of fun. But I don't have time for analyzing the score, because as soon as I stop and look at scoring, then that's 5 minutes of my time where I'm like, oh shoot, I should have been gone.
Right. Where we have to look at scoring because we need to know if the teams are going to backtrack, possibly, or if they're, if we can start taking the course down, because part of our sweep is also to pull up the flags as we move along. The flags are the markers. Yeah. So we need to know if those
that makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then,
sometimes
it sounds to me like maybe the cook crew, except for having to get up before everybody else and start prepping for breakfast, then they got dinner. They got that whole time in the middle of the day where they get to rest and relax. We need to find something else for them to do. So I'm going to talk to Drew about that. They got to do something around camp.
Good luck with that. Let me know how it goes, and if it's your last rebel, then great to know you. Good luck, and take care.
Well, we always tell everybody that we will be on the rebel as long as Emily will allow us to keep showing up.
Here. I will raise a glass to that too.
So what is in the future for Chris Walker?
Oh gosh. Just continuing to grow the company. We have a few projects I don't want to share just yet, but we've got some expansion plans in the work right now with a couple of aspects of education, which I'm really excited about.
Cool.
But really just to keep pushing what we're doing and keeping lots of opportunities and courses available to industry and recreation to look after public lands, be smart drivers, be smart and safe drivers in the workplace, and that kind of stuff. We have some interesting relationships coming up with some big manufacturers, so that's really intriguing. In terms of personal stuff, lots of travel. I'm on the road all the time. Tomorrow I go to the UK for a little bit of work. I spend a lot of time with a couple of colleagues in Wales doing some bits and pieces, some family time, a couple of trips with Vegas and SEMA, and next January, I think it is, I'm going to go spend some time in Iceland again, working with snow trucks, doing some driving stuff up there, probably heading to Mexico for another manufacturer's internal training with a more military style manufacturer. So yeah, lots of variety really.
Nice.
Just being on the road and enjoying what I'm doing and keeping my amazing instructors doing their job and enjoying what they're doing and getting them lots of travel opportunities so they can live the lifestyle and the careers that they want. So yeah, that's really it in a nutshell.
Iceland is on our life list.
Oh my gosh.
We were going to go last winter and things didn't work out for us with, the situation that we were with my parents and stuff. So we ended up having to scrap that. But that's one of the places that's next on our list. I mean, we've done Australia, we've done Japan. We travel all over the United States. We've done Baja, some in Canada, but that Iceland is our next visit. And then I want to go to Ireland and also to New Zealand.
Fantastic. Well, in terms of Iceland and Ireland, let me know. We should sit down and chat over a coffee one evening or morning before this October starts. The train starts to roll, and I'll show you some contacts and information and routes and all that kind of stuff. It's staggering countries. 2 years living in Iceland is one of my favorite countries in the world, and I'm super excited to be back there doing some work and exploration. I've been doing a lot of stuff with a big expedition called the Transglobal Car Expedition.
Okay.
The first fully wheeled expedition going north to south to north around the globe entirely on a rubber-tired vehicle. So they left the Explorers Club, which I got them into as their launch location in New York there, because I'm a member of the Explorers Club and a fellow of the Royal Geographic Society. So they started there. They headed up all the way up to the North Pole, came back down to Greenland, and they're now across in Europe. They crossed the Arctic in rubber-tired vehicles. They're now in Europe, heading down towards Africa. They'll then drive all the way across Antarctica on a new route, cross to Australia, back up through Central America. So it's a really interesting expedition that I've been consulting on and working on, and I've been on a handful of bits and pieces with them. So I'm hoping to see them again. I mean, my secret, fingers crossed, is I'd love to see them in Antarctica, but the likelihood is pretty low. But so yeah, that's on the cards, is to be part of that again in the near future. So yeah,
that sounds cool. Those are the kind of trips that I'd like to do. Next time I go to Australia, though, I figure I have to do 6 months there.
Yeah, it's on my bucket list. I've never been. One day I'll get there.
We did like 16, 17 days, maybe 18 days, and it was way too short. It'd be like, coming to the States and going, okay, I'm going to come to a 2-week visit and try to see everything I can. Well, good luck,
And I think as Europeans, we're very lucky in that we can travel around a wide variety of different countries. But until you go to those huge countries, Australia or Africa or North America, it's only then that us Europeans from our small little countries go, holy smokes, look at the size of this place. When I first moved to Canada and found out that it took like 6 or 7 days to drive across the country, it was insane. When I found out British Columbia alone, as if you take British Columbia from north to south, you can place that over Washington, Oregon, and almost all of California, and that the province of BC is that tall in length, right, to the 3 states on the western side of the U.S. And to drive from where I'm at in British Columbia here, near the U.S. border, to the tip of British Columbia, which is not even halfway up the country, is probably 24 hours worth of driving if you drive nonstop.
Right.
No breaks, just straight through. So sizes are huge. Whereas if I drove 24 hours in the UK, I've done 4 laps of the UK.
Exactly. That just amazes me.
Right.
I'm looking forward to getting into the British Isles and all that area. I really want to. Pretty. I've got a lot of history, family that came out of that area, Scotland especially, and Ireland. So I'm looking forward to that.
There's a couple of really nice trails there in Wales. Very small, straightforward. They're not hard, but so scenic across the moors, through the mountains, out into an old abbey that came from the 11th century. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff. And then the other fun fact about the UK is you're never more than 72 miles from the sea. So no matter where you are in the UK, it only takes 72 miles before you pull off the end and into the sea.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, that's not
just to put it into perspective.
Yeah, that's a short distance.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, cool. Well, Chris, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time and making this interview happen. I'm looking forward to catching you at the Rebelle again this year, and also hopefully, if you're going to go SEMA, you might want to look at that Sunday before is the gala.
It's on my list.
For Ormhoff, because we got a friend that's being inducted.
Yeah, abducted or inducted? Yes, I'm it's on the list. I was looking into that, and I'd very much like to see that happen. Such a well-deserved nomination there.
Well, hopefully we'll get to see you at the gala then as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, well, thank you for your time, Rich.
All right, and thank you, Chris. You take care.
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Well, that's another episode of Conversations with Big Rich. I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you could do us a favor and leave us a review on any podcast service that you happen to be listening on, or send us an email or a text message or a Facebook message, and let me know any ideas that you have, or if there's anybody that you have that you think would be a great guest, please forward the contact information to me so that we can try to get them on. And always remember, live life to the fullest. Enjoying life is a must. Follow your dreams and live life with all the gusto you can. Thank you.